Hi, this is Lois DeWitt. This is the second part of the demo with Conte Crayon. The first one was the basic cylinder, and I showed you how to shade. This is just going to be a follow-up of that. Uh, I'm thinking that it would be good to, once you achieve shading a simple shape, you can go on to a shape that has a little more detail in it, and then I can show you how to introduce that detail into your drawing. Again, this is all just a hypothetical sort of exercise. I'm going to just do a face, any face, um, and this is something you'd have fun working with as well. Even if you don't have to draw really well to get into an exercise like this. You just keep in mind that when you're doing a face, again, the light is going to be mainly coming from this angle here, and maybe from up here, so I can get some shadows. And if you just think about it for a minute, this makes sense. Even if you're just drawing from your imagination, that if the light is coming down from here, then you'll know that there has to be a shadow that collects under the chin, right? Because the chin is an overhang. So light can't reach that area there. Where else would there be a shadow? There'd be a shadow under the lower lip, and there'd be a shadow under on the upper lip, because the upper lip is, because of the light coming down like that, it's not going to show. It's more likely that the lower lip will be reflecting that kind of light. Of course, there'll be a shadow under the nose. And where else? There'll be a shadow here because of the eye sockets. Eyes are recessed into the skull, as we know. And so there's definitely going to be shadows here. And hopefully not too many under the eyes, unless you have a late night out. No, just kidding. The hair is not necessarily a shadow so much as just a color. Hair actually absorbs light because of the texture. It has a gloss that will reflect light, a sheen, but even light hair has a tendency to absorb light. So again, this is just a sketch. Now, on the cylinder drawing that I did, I showed you that you can, with Conte Crayon, you can just reduce all of the texture and tonality that you put into the drawing by taking a paper towel and just neutralizing the whole thing to one tonality. Then you can take an eraser and make the highlights, and playing the shadows and the highlights against each other is a good way of developing a drawing with Conte Crayon. So again, we have the light coming here from this corner, so we're going to make that light. Then we're going to lighten up the forehead, keeping in mind there will be probably a little more light on this side because of and obviously, you know, how accurate is this? Well, it's pretty accurate, at least logically it is. And it should read fairly accurately. So we've sort of redelineated. Now we've done it by highlights. So we take the crayon again and draw back in, and as I'm developing this, you will see that there's going to be more and more detail. Because this is just a basic demo, I'm not going to develop this to the finish, but just enough to give you an idea of how you can keep on developing the details. So then when you do this, you can make the decision as to how far to go with it. Is it going to be just a rough sketch, or is it going to be a fairly completed drawing? And as I'm working, because basically I'm working from my imagination and saying, well, what if the light is this way, then what if this was like this, and what would happen if this, so it's hypothetical, but you can see that you can get a fairly realistic rendering of, just by virtue of keeping in mind where the light is and how it is affecting the figure. Again, you know, keep in mind the shadow under the chin. Maybe there's a little shading in here where the cheeks are. Now, we're going to bring in a little more detail. And see, when I'm bringing in the detail, I'm just using the point to bring in some line. And again, slowly developing it is much better than trying to get everything down at first. So, and what I'm meaning by this is, I'm just going to back off for a minute. Let's say I had an idea of how I wanted the face to be. So I'm going to back off. I'm going to repeat my areas where the highlights are. And you can do this over and over again, depending on how patient you can be and your mode of working. Sometimes, if you do this enough in a drawing, you get a really interesting tonal buildup of all different kinds of shading that takes place. It almost gets kind of dreamlike in a way, especially this brown color is sort of a sepia color. Now let's say that I had an idea about really dramatizing this shape this way. And then I had an idea that maybe the eyes would be quite inset. Again, I'm not committing to a whole lot of detail here, but you can see that I've taken out a lot of detail and I'm putting it back in. Gives me an opportunity to change the face, change the expression, and if you drew something that you didn't like, go over with a paper towel and then try it again. You know, Conte, it's almost a little bit like painting that way. A very kind of redeeming medium. I like to work loosely, and I like to build slowly, especially when I'm working from my imagination, because things come up. I think, oh, look at that, you know, maybe I will do that. Maybe I'll make the nose a little bit different, or the hair a little bit different. Doesn't have to be really exacting to get an effect that is quite dramatic. Just using the point of the Conte, as you use it, it develops a little point on it. Okay, that's about it. I think that's about as far as I'm going to go. I just really wanted to show you how you can keep on developing building the drawing, developing the tonality, taking things in, taking things out, bringing things in, changing in this case, the face, the expression. You have a lot of flexibility, and it's fun. Probably the best thing, too, is that you can let your imagination go. And if you see something in the drawing that you really like, keep it. And if there's something in there that isn't quite right, take it out. Easy enough to do with Conte. So that's my second demonstration. We've just gotten into a little more detail, and I've showed you how to develop a drawing just a little bit further with the Conte crayon.